Hey there, Simone here with Bulletproof Business Growth, as always with some ideas and insights, what to pay attention to when you are seriously in the place where you want to grow and scale your business. So today I'm going to talk about something that gets me really fired up because I hear this all the time. Our clients will come to us and say, I just need more business, I need more sales, I need more leads. And, we want to kind of explore how you as the CEO have the responsibility for making and getting more sales, because the general thinking that I observe is it's up to you as the CEO to drive the sales, which actually is absolutely true, but maybe not in the way that you're thinking about it. You are the one who is driving the relationships, who is connecting dots, who's making connections, who is bringing in those big whales and really making some big time stuff happen. But you are not the only person in your organization who's responsible for sales, even if you don't have a sales team. So we want to talk about how to avoid disaster by having that be the scenario and really focusing on how you need to think about building and having a sales team in your business right now. Sales teams, let's preface it by saying this. Sales teams are always the hardest team to build, drive, keep moving, and make accountable in your business. Because when you have a truly a sales team that's only focused on sales, that's salespeople, well, there's a lot of ego involved, there's a lot of emotion involved. And let's face it, building a sales team and handing them the keys to your business is one of the riskiest things you can do as the CEO. So really, when you are excellent at building and running a sales team, even if you're not the sales leader in your organization, but you still do it through them, right? That if you can do that, you can do anything, you're golden. But as the CEO, even when you have a sales leader and when you have built a sales team already, you always have to keep your fingers on the pulse of where the gap is in your organization. So just in general, not the sales team, this is really your biggest role that you have, is you must keep your fingers on the pulse of where the biggest gap is in your organization. And that's where you jump in. That's where you help your leaders make the changes, make the difference, and then you move on to the next gap. And as you build your business, as you grow, there's always going to be a gap. Like your weakest place in your business, your weakest link is going to grow the second you put more pressure on the organization because you're growing. So there's always going to be a break. The second you fix that break, it's going to put more pressure somewhere else. And that means that this is going to be the process that you'll always be following in your business, and that will never go away. So we have to make sure that we fix those gaps, and sales will be your most important gap, of course, to fix, because otherwise there's no business. So you have to keep your eye on the leads, absolutely. But is the problem really that you need more leads? This is what I hear from our clients all the time. I need more leads. I need more sales. But really, what's the point here to when you, like, in terms of driving more leads, what's the point in driving more leads when you take care of those leads poorly once they come into your environment? Because that's what I see all the time. So even when there are leads, maybe they're not enough leads, but there are leads, and then they don't get nurtured, they don't get taken care of, they don't get maximized, they don't get converted, they don't get brought into your environment in a way where they truly maximize their input. So where their input builds the output that you're looking for, right? So this is really, really important, because that means leads cost a lot of money. They always do. Even when you don't have paid advertising, just think about what the cost is to bring in a single customer in your business. Whatever your business is, there's always a cost to every single customer that you're bringing in. So do you know what the cost is for every single customer that you're bringing in. You have to know that. If you don't know that number, then you can't really appropriately fix your process or build your process that builds you a profitable business. So you have to know your CAC, your cost of acquired client, right? So you have to know that. So with that being said, well, most of the time, the problem is not that you need more marketing or that you need more leads or that you need more sales. The problem is not your sales. The problem is your leadership. So it's not a sales problem most of the time. It's a leadership problem almost all the time. And I'll tell you right now why that is. So, because go back to the beginning, what we started with, sales is not all on you. The big pieces are, keeping it together is, focusing on that is, but your most important role in sales is building a culture, an environment, a culture of sales in your organization. So this is not really actually you building a sales team, right? This is building a culture of sales. So let's back up for a second. Your culture is your environment. Now, for businesses to succeed, they need an environment. They need to set up the environment so every single person in that business can succeed, right? This is like, there's no qualms about this. This is how it is. The truth is that 85% of business success, 85% of success of the people that you have in your business comes down to environment. Because if you haven't set the environment where people can be successful, how are they going to do this, right? So it comes down to environment, and it comes down to leadership. So which means that only 15% of your people's success, of your business success, because they're tightly linked, is dependent on that individual contributor, on this person. 85% is on the environment and 15% is on them, which is actually really good news for you. Because let's get back to that for a second before I get to the good news. The bad news is here, think about it like this. So you're hiring a rock star, an absolute A players, like they can't sleep at night without making sure that things happen, that they're done excellently, that everything is delivered amazingly. They're experts at what they do, all that stuff. So they're absolute A players, right? And then they come into your absolutely disorganized house. There's no priorities. There's no processes. There are no good people in general. Everything around them, the environment, is a mess. So they come into your mess, into your chaos, into your leadership. How do you think they're going to be successful? It's hardly possible. They would have to be better than everybody else, better than you, and it would have to be their business. They would have to leave it, right? So it is virtually impossible for an amazing rock star to come into your disorganized house and be successful. But on the flip side here is something else. So listen here, because this is part of the really good news. So let's say you have a bunch of B players, but now you've spent the time and the energy that needs spending to put your house in order. So you've put the right priorities in place. You have put the right processes in place. You have put the right systems in place. And now you have a measurable system, a systematic approach to producing results. So as long as you bring in B players who are hungry, who are the right can do, will do, team fit, right? So they're hungry, they're the right team fit, they're the right culture fit. With everything you already put in place just now, you can turn them quite easily into an A player. So now you can duplicate and replicate this process, which means you can actually scale. Because the number of talented people, the number of amazing people that run your business with you is absolutely in direct correlation to the quality and size of organization you can build. So if you can't either bring in A players or bring in the right fit people who want to be A players and who are striving to be A players, you can't grow. This is absolutely the truth. So when you look at, there's super successful businesses, right? For instance, one of my favorite examples is Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A, they've figured out how to lower the bar for the level of expertise that people have to bring in, that most people, right, in the organization need to bring in to come into their environment and be successful, right? So they hire kids, college students, completely junior. They hire people who come in with zero experience, but they have put in an amazing system and an amazing training school that people go through and follow and are held accountable to, that makes sure that anybody with the right attitude, with the right growth mindset, can succeed in their environment. And that's exactly what you have to do too in your business, no matter what your size business is, no matter what phase of business you're in. That's what you have to do if you want to build something that you can actually grow and scale. So think about this. If your team members, most of them need to be super experts, like all of them have to be experts, that you can't scale. It's just not possible. So as an example, for instance, our client Dan, great business owner, really, really good product. He owns a very high-end painting company. And his biggest crux was that the amount of business he could bring in, he wasn't bringing in because he was afraid he wouldn't have the number of talented and skilled people to do the kind of level of work that his business requires for them to uphold the standards and be successful. So that was always the bottleneck. And he wasn't bringing in business that he could have brought in because he was worried he wasn't going to be able to satisfy that. So what we did is we helped him build basically a painting academy, a school where he could bring in anybody with the right attitude. He had the right trainer who would come in, take those people and build them up to be the right fit for the company, to have the right skill set for the company, the right attitude, the right mindset, so that no matter what jobs came his way, whether it was, like really well-known people, really big names, multi-million dollar properties, he would always deliver. So this is what he built. So he always has a pipeline for the right people who can help him grow the business. And he is growing by leaps and bounds. So scaling basically means building a process where you can optimize and multiply for leverage. Because what does leverage really mean is you're creating more output with less input. So you're putting in less effort, but getting in more results. That's the only way you can grow and scale, when you know how to leverage your energy. So this means that your biggest role is that you have to keep improving your systems. You have to keep improving your priorities, your people, and your processes, right? The 3 Ps, it always keeps coming back to the 3 Ps. So let's go back to sales, because how is this about sales? So this is the stuff where I get really excited, because we talk about, do you really need more sales? Yes. As you grow, you will need more leads and more sales, but your number one priority is you have to optimize those sales and squeeze the most LTV, lifetime value, out of those sales. Because once you have somebody in your environments, once you have a customer, that customer doesn't cost you anything. Every new customer that's coming in is costing you CAC, cost of acquired client, right? So this is really important. So new customers cost money. Customers you already have don't cost money. You can keep maximizing what you can actually serve them with so that they stay in your environment. So How do you do that? How do you maximize your sales? How do you make more sales with the same number of leads or with fewer leads? Well, you build your everybody sales team. What? What the heck am I talking about? So everybody on your team, and this is something that requires a huge mindset shift from you and from your team. And this is the only way you're going to build a self-motivated sales machine that can drive the business and grow the business even when you're not around. And you might not like what I'm saying here, but this is the bottleneck that I hear from our clients over and over and over, no matter if they have a hair salon, a painting company, if they are in the tech space, it doesn't matter. Medical practices, lots of those. No matter what your business is, this is always true. So remember, we've served clients in over 50 kinds of industries, and this has been always true. So you have to build an everybody sales team, which means every single person on your team who in any way is customer facing, and even when they're not customer facing, is responsible for sales. Because everybody on your team can either make sales, drive sales, facilitate sales, or support sales. And that's what you need to happen to maximize what you can do with the number of leads that you already have. Okay, so what this means is, just like Dan did, you have to build a sales academy for your team, where you build a process for every single role and help them understand how they contribute to overall sales in the company. Of course, customer facing, they have even more impact and influence, but even when they're not customer facing, they could be in the back of operations, they could be in accounting, they could be in finance, they could be really anywhere in your organization. They could sit on their hands, or they can make sure that the numbers keep rolling. So like, for instance, accounting, well, if you have a whole bunch of people who haven't paid their bills, they could kind of not do anything about that, or they can make sure that they collect on that, or getting the invoices out to make sure people have invoices to pay. Like every single, I challenge you with this. Think about every single person on your team. Think about if they did what they should do, if they did what they could, how could they support and facilitate sales? So you might think I'm completely out of my mind here, but this is absolutely true. Every single team member that you have is part of your sales team. And every single one of these people has to know how to make every lead count. Because every single person on your team has to understand how they move every customer that you have, or that's coming in, through that know, like, trust, and buy phase. And this has to become a daily practice that every single person on your team is a part of. So they have to understand that this part, satisfying the numbers, making the sales happen, taking care of the clients so that they stay and come back for more, that this is their job more than anything, right? So the prerequisite here is that you can't just expect this. This is something that you have got to make happen. So, and sometimes, like our client Dan, he has a partner in his business who is really good at this process, training this process. So he and Dan hatched out how that process would take every single person on their crews and make them into that winning team member that can drive sales for them, that can make sure that every single job is completed to the utmost standard, because that means every single customer is going to come back and use them again, right? So here's the prerequisite. You have to train every single person on your team, or you have to have a leader who will do that with you, to understand how their role facilitates or drives sales. Then we have to make sure that each person on your team, for each role, has a plan that includes sales and that helps them understand how they impact and influence the numbers, how they're a part of that, how they contribute to the sales strategy on the company, then you have to train them again. Then you have to check in on them and follow up. You have to train them again. And then you have to help them improve and actually reach those metrics. And the really good news is when you do that, there is tremendous opportunity for every single person on your team to keep growing, to make more money, because then you can actually give them some perks that are related to either top line or bottom line, however you do it. But everybody who drives sales and actually contributes at a higher level to the company than if they just work their role can be included in the revenue goals and get some upside of that, right? So that could be a tremendous perk from working with you. But it takes the right people. So you have to understand that your business is a machine. And you're going to put in what you get out, and you're going to get in what you're going to get out what you put in. So you always have to think about that, because you have to be consistent in this process with metrics that are clear, that everybody can understand how they reach them. And then you have to hold people accountable to that. And it has to be a required part of everybody's role, because otherwise it doesn't work, right? Otherwise you can't be consistent with your output. So your quote unquote sales team success means that every single person on the team has to drive sales, and that makes our business be successful. So your team has to understand that. And you as the CEO, you must be involved in this process until it works without you, because it becomes part of your fabric. It becomes part of your culture. It becomes part of the everyday conversation. So here, as an example, you could, when all of your team sells, they get a percentage of your, like I said, top line or bottom line, and then they get benefits. So that's the perk here. And how they get that, though, has to make sense. So everybody has to understand how they get to that. And that's the thing. Everybody has to get it, that they're responsible for the numbers, because otherwise the business is not successful, which means if the business is not successful, they're not successful. Their job can't be there. Their job will go away, right? If the business doesn't succeed, they can't have that job. So you're responsible for, and they have to get it. They have to get that making sales, taking care of sales, taking care of customers, that more sales happen is a huge part of their job, no matter what they do. So they have to get it. And any of you who followed me for a while, you've probably heard me talk about the it's, like everybody who is the greatest fit or the right fit on your team has to have the capacity to do it. They have to get it. They have to want it, and they have to need it. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that actually means, but they have to get it, that sales don't just happen in a vacuum, that they're a definite part of the sales process. They have to understand how that happens and how they can influence it so they can be successful. So you have to set the environment, but they have to come in with the willingness and the drive and the hunger to make it happen. So I know that you want more sales, right? Everybody wants more sales. But the problem here is you have to create a sales culture first. So when you want more sales, they don't just happen. They don't happen from getting more leads. They happen from taking every single lead that you already have or that's coming in, even if it's coming in slower than you want to, and maximizing that lead with every single person that touches it. So you must create a sales culture first. And then your sales are really about your culture and your mindset. Because although technically not everybody on your team is on a sales team, everybody is responsible for sales and numbers. And I'm going to keep saying this so it trickles in, and it's something that you start talking about to your team, because you must teach them business acumen. If you don't, then you have a whole bunch of people who are just sitting back and letting things happen, who don't connect the dots. And then everything is always depend 100% on you. You're the hub for everything. You drive everything. You take care of everything. You solve every problem. And you're 24/7. Your life sucks and you have no freedom in your business. So to change that, we have to build this culture. And that also means that everyone understands what it means to run a business, what it means, what you have to put in to get out. Which, you know what, there's really great news in that, because that means you have a whole lot of less entitlement on your team, because people finally start understanding what it takes to make a buck. Because most employees have no clue, and they see you making money and they think that's all going into your fat pocket. And what do they get? Like a few bucks here, right? There's a lot of entitlement and resentment that can happen when you don't help your team build business acumen that helps them understand what it takes to make the money, right? So you might have to teach them this business acumen until they get it, and then they want it, they want to be a part of that, and they need it because that means they're contributing to success. So your daily focus, everybody's daily focus needs to be on serving your customers and getting more customers. So serving your existing customers so they love you, they stay with you, they want more of you, and then getting more. So your business really only has two functions, and to have a healthy business, you have to engage in those two functions every single day. No matter where they are, everybody contributes to that. Every role in your business is sales generating and sales supporting. Every single role contributes to sales. Everybody is responsible for sales and leads coming in. And this is, like I said, it's a culture change. It's a mindset change. It's a focus change. And it really, here's the news that you probably don't like, it absolutely starts with you. It always starts with you. So you have to lead this from the top. You have to become the one who explains it, who trains it, who preaches it, who relates to it, who helps them understand how that shows up in their own daily reality so they can connect the dots themselves, and you don't have to constantly do it for them, right? So when you have this as an everyday conversation, it means that it becomes the fabric, the DNA in your company. So you really have to be the one who keeps talking about this. You have to feel like a broken record, because you know how that goes. You're going to say it 35 times before they hear it once. And that's just the way it works with human consciousness. So it has to become this everyday conversation that builds the DNA, the culture, that becomes self-perpetuating, because our whole theme always is, how do you build an autonomous, self-led team and company? It's by doing that, building this culture of sales where everybody understands the business and drives the business. Now it becomes self-perpetuating. So this is always your focus. Now, part of that is also that you have to celebrate and talk about numbers, and everybody on your team has to do that. So you do that with your leaders do that with their teams do that with their teams. So it's something that trickles all the way through all the different layers in your company. So everybody on your team, whether they're all the way at the top or all the way at the bottom, they talk about numbers, they understand numbers, they know how to influence numbers, they know how they impact numbers, and how that's a really good thing. So this has to be part of the everyday conversation. So you want to always talk about the numbers. You want to help them understand how they can improve the numbers. But here's one word of caution. You don't want to be the one who always talks about numbers when the numbers aren't right. You want to talk about numbers in all different ways. You want to help them understand when it's good and why it's good so that they can do more of it, right? And this is, some of our clients don't like to talk about when things are good because they're afraid of people, of the entitlement, of the what story are they going to make out of it, right? But when you help them have that business acumen that I was talking about earlier, they will also understand what that actually means. So you have to talk about when it's good, you want to celebrate, you want them understand, you want to help them understand how you got there and how they can contribute more to that, which is good for everybody, especially if they're part of the upside, right? And then you can also talk about the gaps, but when you only talk about the gaps, it sets up panic, worry, fear, churn, turnover, people going looking elsewhere. So you don't want to talk about the numbers just in a bad way. You want to talk about the numbers in a balanced way. So only talking about lack really truly kills motivation and morale. You want to help them understand how they can create more of the good, right? And that's what we want. So in a healthy organization, we talk about numbers all day long, and it's part of the culture. It's part of what everybody buys into, because now everybody becomes a business person. Every single person becomes a business person. And here is the truth. And this is a giant caveat, and you're just going to have to believe me and trust me that this is part of the process of growing and scaling your business. Because when you start talking about this, when you first roll this out, you're going to see a big division happen. You're going to see the division between people who can grow the business with you and people who your business has outgrown already. And maybe they're barely hanging in there and maintaining, but they're certainly not helping you get there. They're probably actually draining time and energy that you don't have to give. So this is where the wheat divides from the chaff, and you're going to have to make a cleanup, because now you're building a growth culture. A sales culture means a growth culture. And you can't grow your business without having a growth culture, which means everybody has to have a growth mindset, right? So there's always the people you build your business with who are the ones who jump in. Maybe they're friends and family. Maybe they're, just anybody who will do the work for not that much money. But when you get to that place where you actually organize and you strategize and you start being systematized and you do the people, the priorities and the processes, it becomes a completely different game, and it requires a really different skill set and mindset. And not everybody who started with you will be able to go on this path with you. They won't be able to journey with you. They'll fall off the train at some point. And that is just part of the process. Sometimes that means you have to let go of people who are near and dear to you, who started the business with you, who are wonderful, but you can't grow the business unless people are on that same page with you. And I promise you, I'm not making this up. This is just part of the truth, and you're going to have to accept that if you want to grow. So if you want to create a scalable business, you have to create an autonomous sales culture where everybody understands and everybody loves and everybody's responsible and everybody owns the numbers that they have direct influence over. So this is, like I said earlier, that's why when you get serious about growth, you must weed out your non-growth mindset people. So that's a really big deal. When you're serious about growth, you have to weed out the people who don't fit that. So, and they might not like you, they might not love you for that, but do you want to grow? If the answer is yes, that means your team has to own sales. Your team has to be the one that drives this. Your CEO job is not about being loved. They don't have to love you, they have to respect you. And that means that a big chunk of your real role here is that you have to expand small minds. You have to challenge them. You have to make them uncomfortable. You have to grow them. Because when you do that, you're truly responsible for your people and your business. Because your business is your people. If you're not responsible for both from the perspective of a CEO, you can't grow. You probably can't sustain, and you certainly can't scale. So It's your job to make them uncomfortable, to help them grow, to create more opportunity for all, because means career growth, means people actually want to stay, they keep being engaged, they keep being challenged, they keep going with you, so they can actually grow with you, right? So above all, your job is to keep the business healthy. So you have to look at the business through your business goggles, not through your emotional goggles here. So because like I said earlier, if you don't manage to keep the business healthy, that means nobody has a job, or people start getting burned out because suddenly they're having to burn the candle at both ends, or they start hating what they're doing because they're just doing far too much of it, all the same stuff, and then eventually you and everybody else starts failing. So when you want to build this long-term sustainability, you have to commit to this process every single day. So next time you say you need more business, I want to challenge you. I want to help you examine, is that really true? Is that really true? Or are your existing leads and sales maximized 360 degrees? Because that's what you're going for here. So the problem is not probably that you need more leads and sales. The problem is that you have not built that sales culture. So you must build, like we talked about earlier, your sales academy. Then you have to hire right, as in people with growth mindset. You have to weed out the people you already got and make sure you only keep the ones around that have that growth mindset. And then when you onboard people, you have to make sure that you give them a plan, that you give them clearly articulated, understandable metrics, that they get how they drive them, that you hold them accountable. Because if they're not accountable in the first 30 days, chances are they're not going to be accountable ever. So the right person is coachable and they're accountable, even when they're new and they might be making mistakes. They might not be getting it right away, but those two pieces are always prevalent. They're accountable and they're coachable. So that'll let you know very quickly, these people that you're hiring now, are they the right fit or not? So you'll know very quickly in the first month if that's the truth, versus 6, 9, 12 months down the line, which at this point has cost you a ton of money, probably your sanity, frustration, all this kind of stuff. So you don't want that. You want to make sure that you are the CEO who's setting them up to win, which means setting up that culture, that environment that we talked about, so that they can do an amazing job for you. That means your biggest job here is that you must lead, you must coach, you must talk like a leader. And when you lead, that means you're taking care of people, priorities, and processes. And today's sales team process is a huge part of that. So if you want to do more about this, we just released our new book. I just released my new book. I'll put the link underneath for you. Check it out. You can also join our Facebook group. I'll put the link underneath for that as well. And we'll also put out a ton of new, fresh content every single week. So hope this helps. Let us know if there's anything we can do, anything that you need help with. And I will see you next time.